Hi guys, welcome to Twin Perspective. I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be continuing a series of videos entitled The Films That Scared Me. Today I am featuring the original from 1976, The Omen. Full spoilers on The Omen. Directed by Richard Donner. Starring Gregory Peck and Lee Remick and David Warner of Twin Peaks fame. There's a lot of activity going on around the apartment complex today. So if you guys hear strange screams and stuff like that. Ooh, that sounds like demons. This is going to be the background for my telling of The Omen. Now, like I said in the video for The Exorcist, I was raised Christian, so The Omen is one of those films that's kind of like, if you read the Bible and you believe in it, that this is supposed to happen. It's like a literal telling of part of the Bible, and for it to be laid out in this real true form and watching the events happen, it was captivating for me. I saw The Omen probably a couple of years after it was released, so I was probably 7 when I saw it, 7 or 8, and it was pretty freaky. What scared me about the movie at the time, not only the implication of the Antichrist in human form, but just the weird events surrounding this child. It wasn't like this kid was running around with a butcher knife stabbing people, but the circumstances happening around it, they were so out of place, and just it seemed like as though it was accidents. And accidents can happen to anybody. So watching all these events unfold and thinking to myself, just a simple accident, but that kid had something to do with it. And it was almost like this evil force protecting the child the whole time. And those crazy accidents that just got to me. It was like, okay, this could really happen to people, and just it kind of made me fearful for just simple everyday accidents. I mean, I lose my mind when my 8-year-old wants to perform some kind of stunt. Overprotective parent, I guess, but I know this movie had a lot to do with it, because in the subsequent sequels they kept up with the same shtick of just crazy accidents happening, and it affected me. Both those films, all 3 of the original Omens, the Omen 2, Damien, and Omen 3, the Final Conflict. Those are the ones. All 3 are very good films, especially the original and part 3. And some of those death scenes I'll never forget. It's like burned into my conscience, into my fear nerves. So the film is basically this woman gives birth. Her child died. She doesn't know it at childbirth, and the father works out a deal where this child that needs to be adopted gets switched, and so he doesn't tell the mother, and they raise this new child as their own. They name it Damien. Okay, this guy is some sort of a U.S. diplomat, and the child was born in Rome, but he ends up becoming the ambassador to the U.K., and they move there. And then on Damien's 5th birthday, the nanny hangs herself. Oh, I'll never forget that. That was just, it's all for you, Damien. And she just jumps and hangs herself. Like, what in the hell? Everyone's freaking out. And Damien looks unfazed, except that's when that Rottweiler shows up. The new nanny pops up out of nowhere, and of course she's evil and wants to make sure Damien's protected, and she convinces the parents to let the dog hang around, and this dog is horrifying. Big ass black Rottweiler. Okay, so this local priest who's infatuated with this story of the Antichrist tries to convince the father that the child may be evil. And he dies. He gets this lightning rod that falls from the top of the church and in this freak storm and impales him. Now there's this photographer played by David Warner who was taking pictures at the child's birthday, and all of the pictures of everybody has these shadows, and one of the priests has a black shadow that looks like the spear, so it seems like, or the lightning rod that impaled him. So he thinks that these are premonitions, and he's got pictures of his own self with a shadow going across his neck. But he also had one of the nanny, I think, and it looked like a rope that was hanging herself. So he's questioning what's going on about all this, and he's starting to worry about his own ass. So he convinces, damn, they're going off back there. So he convinces the father that we should go back to Italy and check out the origins of where this child came from. So they go to Italy, and everything's been burnt to a crisp. The place where the child was supposedly at, and all the records, everything's burnt to a crisp. And there's only one survivor out of the whole incident, and that freaked me out too when you meet this guy and he's all burned up and he can barely talk, and I think his arms paralyzed and his eyes all burnt and stuff. It was just freaky. And he could barely write with his other hand, and he writes one word down. I think it's the name of the cemetery. That's where the baby's mother is supposed to be buried. So Gregory Peck and David Warner go to this cemetery. Don't think it's in Italy. It might be in Italy. I'm not sure. And it's such a well-shot scene. And they're in the dark cemetery, and they dig up this grave, and it's the body of a jackal. So the child's mother was a jackal. And in the grave next to it was a baby, the skeleton of a baby, which was probably his baby, and it had a crushed skull, which implies that they murdered his baby and put this child there so that this child could be raised with some sort of power, in the world, being the son of a U.S. ambassador. So freaky as all hell. And then the dogs show up to chase him out of the cemetery, and they're all Rottweilers, dark and black and big, just like the one at the house. Oh man. And they have to jump this fence, and the top of the fence has these little spikes, and he gets his Gregory Peck gets his arm stuck in one. It's such a great effect, and I've been afraid of fences like that ever since, because I just know if I try to jump one, I'm going to impale myself like this guy did, and the dogs are pulling on him the whole time. Oh, that's so scary. I mean, a big black dog in the middle of the night in my life, never again. No, there were times when I'd ride my bicycle late at night, and these dogs would come running from the yards. They weren't leashed, and my heart rate never beat so much as some creature growling and barking coming out of the darkness. Oh my God. Anyway, this movie probably had a lot to do with that, but that was horrifying to me. And then they decide to go to Israel, because they're going to talk to the people that know about this Bible stuff, right? And this guy there has daggers and says if he's the Antichrist, this is the only thing that'll kill him. And you can tell if he's the Antichrist if you check under his hair, on his scalp, and look for the numbers 666. And we all know the story now, but this is how it was all introduced to me through this movie, because I had never read the Bible cover to back when I was 7 years old. So now they know what to do. Well, the dad's not going to kill the kid. He throws the daggers, and the photographer, David Warner, goes to retrieve the daggers, and this sheet of glass slides off a truck and chops his head off. And that's where the shadow was in the picture, and it's such an amazing effect. It's such a great stunt. And just the truck's rolling, it crashes, comes out, cuts his head, it flips. It's just amazing. And at that point, I think the dad figures out, yeah, there's something wrong. He grabs the daggers. He's taking them back home with him. So he gets home. He checks under the kid's hair, and of course, it's got a 666. And then the demon nanny starts attacking him, and in the fight he kills her, and then he takes the kid with the daggers. He's going to the church, and he's going to kill the kid. At this point, his wife's already dead. I forgot to mention, while he wasn't in the house, Damien's riding around on his little tricycle, and he bumps into her while she's standing on a stool trying to fix a plant, and she falls off the ledge and falls like a story down to the floor, and ends up losing the baby that way. She was pregnant, and he was warned that that baby wasn't going to be born, and she didn't even want to have the baby. She wanted an abortion. Well, she ended up miscarrying, and then the nurse shows up at the hospital and pushes the mom out the window and kills her. So this guy's lost everything at this point. So he's taking the kid to the nearest church. He's going to stab him with the daggers and be over with, but the cops are following him because he's driving erratically, and they show up, and he goes to stab the kid. The gunshots fire. And the next scene you see, it's a funeral for the ambassador, and the President of the United States is standing there, and right next to him is little Damien, who looks back and smiles. Oh yeah, that movie scared me. That movie scared me because it took a story out of the Bible and put it in practical terms and said, hey, look, yeah, you believe in this stuff? This is what's going to happen. And the subsequent movies I thought were really good. Damien, Omen 2, not so much, but the final conflict with Sam Neill was really good, and the deaths in that were just awful. The circumstances, the iron with the baby, and that guy that got wrapped in plastic and was swinging through the fire. Oh, I've never, we used to build bonfires when I was a kid all the time, and I would take a long stick and put a milk jug on it and put it in the fire, and just the sound of that plastic dripping, I thought that was really cool. It's like a science project, and to see that scene with that guy melting in that plastic on fire just gets me every time. So anyway, check out the Final Conflict Part 3 after you've watched the first one. Of course, watch the second one too. You don't have to go anywhere past that. I didn't like any of the Omens past that. I thought that was the perfect 3 stories that were out of the Bible, and I kind of like the way it ended. Sort of. Jesus could have just shown up and ended it all to begin with, but whatever. That's my review of The Omen from 1976 by Richard Donner. Such an amazing job directing. The music by Jerry Goldsmith actually won the Academy Award. I think it's the only time Jerry Goldsmith ever won. And it's not my favorite soundtrack by his. As a matter of fact, the music on its own is just okay, but within the film, it works really well. And the performances are really good. So that's it. Don't know if it scared you like it scared me, but the creepiness of it all, the events, the nanny hanging herself, the mom getting knocked off the stool and falling, and the sheet of glass and the lightning rod and all of these accidents. It's kind of like Final Destination stuff. That if Final Destination would have kept accidents, this stuff was all supernatural, and you felt like Damien had something to do with it, but it wasn't like this child, like I said, running around stabbing people. Just a very creepy, very religious, supernatural, and definitely one of the films that scared me. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. I'm Joe. Sorry about all the demon screeches behind us, but that's the way it goes. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. I'm Joe, and I will see you in the trees.